So PDPs stand for Potential Development Programs. And those are programs where we develop internal talent. Our mission is to create and develop talent within the organization. I'm extremely passionate about the topic of personal development and extracting the potential of individuals.
Love to Learn.
Der Podcast für alle, die Lernen lieben.
Hello and welcome back to Love to Learn, the podcast for everybody who loves learning. I'm very excited to be here today. And for all of our listeners who are usually listening to our podcast, they might be a little confused because today I'm speaking English. And this is the first English episode in quite a while, so I'm very excited. And Pauli, how do you feel about your first English episode?
Hello, I'm very excited to talk a longer time English because usually we're talking in German. But I think we're going to rock this, so it's going to be nice.
Absolutely, absolutely. Pauli, you know exactly how the podcast works.
Yes.
So in the beginning, we have a secret question prepared that Pauli doesn't know about yet. And because spring is coming, I want to know from you, which is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Ooh, that's a nice question. For me, it's mango.
Mango.
Yeah, I love mango, just like a fruity thing. A fruity sorbet or something.
Okay,
and what's your favorite?
I'm more on the chocolate side or even like cookie dough. That's also one of my
so you
favorites.
like the milky ice creams and I'm the sorbet.
Yeah. Right.
Fun fact, I worked in an ice cream shop.
Really?
When I was 16.
Look.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
I needed to do all the scoops. And it was very tough because the queue was so long. And then everyone wanted to have like the spaghetti ice cream. And then you need to start pressing and blah, blah, blah. And it was annoying, but it was nice.
So you're not completely destroyed about ice cream and you can still enjoy it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, and with that being said, we obviously have an amazing guest with us today. Hello, Toni. Welcome to Love to Learn.
Hi,
nice to have you. Maybe for you, the first question, which is your favorite ice cream?
Oh yeah, I am more in your direction. Coffee is always my go-to.
That's also good. Oh, tiramisu ice. I've had that once.
Oh yeah.
That's very good.
I lived in Italy for 2 years and I'm still surprised that I didn't go crazy about gelato. But I have to say that I had a tiramisu ice cream with the biscuit chunks in it and with an espresso poured on top. And I have to say that I'm scarred for life.
That sounds amazing.
It's like an affogato, but with tiramisu ice cream.
Oh yeah,
that sounds very
it's
good.
tough.
Let's go to Italy and grab that ice, I'd say. In the beginning of the podcast, we always have a little introduction. So the listeners who don't know Toni yet have a little bit more information, a little bit more context, who you are and what you already did. And Pauli is now going to read out that text. And afterwards, you can give us some feedback if the things that we prepared are right or if we maybe did some mistakes or something.
Yes. Today, Antonio Recio is with us. It's great to have you here. You've built an impressive international career, gaining professional and cultural experience in your home country, Spain, and then in Italy and Singapore. Those global perspectives have shaped you how you think about leadership, growth, and learning in complex organizations. In 2019, you joined Siemens as a CEO Program Associate, the start of your journey at Siemens. Guided by your belief that continuous learning is the key to both personal and organizational success, you later moved into the Learning and Growth Department. That brings us to today. As Global Head of Potential Development Programs, PDP, at Siemens, you focus on identifying and developing high potential leaders across the organization. You create space for growth, connecting people, building trust, and designing programs that empower others to take on greater responsibility and help shape the company's future. 2 years ago, at just 35, you faced something completely unexpected, a stroke, a moment that changed everything, but rather than stopping you, it became a turning point, one that led you to reflect deeply on resilience, perspective, and what truly matters, and to redefine growth as more than career success. Today, you share those insights openly and inspire others to focus on sustainable development, mindset, and becoming just 1% better every day, professionally and personally. Nice to have you here, Toni. I hope we did not forget something. If so, you can add more information. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much to the both of you for having me here. And for putting my journey into words, I think you do that much better than I do myself, to be honest. So maybe if I need to be introduced, I may pick the two of you to do it for me.
You can always come back to us.
Before I share a particularity that it's not covered there. Ich mache das auf Deutsch.
Ja.
Ich will mich bei euch bedanken, dass wir auf Englisch machen. Ich sage immer, ich bin lustiger auf Englisch. So, danke euch und danke eure Zuhörer, dass einfach das auf Englisch sein kann.
Sehr gerne.
Sehr gerne. No problem.
And to that peculiarity, I was asked one time to tell a story about my name. And this is a little bit crazy, but I share it with you both. And my name is Antonio, but I go by Toni. My last name is Recio in Spanish, and if you translate it to German, is Stark, so it's Tony Stark. For those Marvel Universe fans, Tony Stark is Iron Man.
Yes.
Nice.
But my first job after university was in a company called Eisenman, that if you translate that into English is Iron Man. And that is the only, that's where the similarities stop. But yeah, I am Iron Man.
Nice.
I don't fly in an iron suit at night, but and I'm not a billionaire, so sorry to disappoint you.
But also, are you gonna walk in Iron Man, or did you already walk in Iron Man?
Oh, I think that is the stamp that I'm missing.
That would be great for the full circle moment to have
That's
every
another
Iron Man connection.
possible. Something to consider. I definitely challenge accepted. I don't know when, but
Great.
Nice. Before we dive into your role, we're starting with personal questions to get to know you a little bit better, just to warm up and getting comfortable with the podcast setting here. We've already heard that your journey has taken you across different countries and cultures. So I saw on LinkedIn you can speak a lot of languages. And the first question is, which language would you like to learn additionally?
I thought it was to make me comfortable. I'm kidding. So there's 4 languages that always pop into my mind when I get thinking about which one would I like to learn. So the 2 easier ones would be French and Portuguese because they have a similar root to Spanish, and I think it would be easier for me. There's 2 other languages that I really am very curious about. Number 1 would be Japanese. Because of the culture, I think Japan has a very strong culture and very strong values to which I reflect and relate to. The other one would be Arabic.
Okay.
I don't know if you know, but the story of Spain is that we had a lot of Arabic influence for 700 years, and for some reason there is a lot of curiosity when it comes to Arabic. I would have to educate a lot of how to move my mouth correctly to be able to pronounce, but Arabic would definitely make it up to that list.
Yeah, that's definitely a good.
What
mix
about you
of
both?
languages. I mean, I'd also go with Portuguese because, like, my grandmother is from Portugal, so I've never gotten actually the chance to learn Portuguese. But I think it would be a nice way to kind of maybe talk with my grandmother in another language. I think that would be fun.
She speaks German and Portuguese.
Yes,
Okay.
both. So
I think for me it's Italian. I already learned for 1 semester in the bachelor Italian, but it was just like hello and bye and can I have 2 breads or something. But I really want to speak it fluent. But the thing is that I'm not good in learning languages because I'm too chilled with the vocabulary and I'm not like... I need to learn the language. That's why I'm not a person to learn more languages. I don't know.
And also speaking the language is so important because I also had Italian in school, but I've never actually practically spoken the language. So I've learned all of the vocabulary, but I didn't get the chance to actually use the words and actually make sentences that are real.
When I learned Italian, I lived in Italy for 2 years, and the first 3 months I was very quiet because I was listening a lot. And I also didn't speak the language. At some point, I broke the barrier of embarrassment, and I tried my non-existent Italian. Whatever I didn't know in Italian, I would pronounce with an Italian accent, but I would use the Spanish word.
Nice.
And I got very funny faces. I would highly recommend if you want to get funny faces to your Portuguese or your Italian, just say it in German with an Italian accent and you're good.
That's a very good tip to just get it done a little bit easier. You're pretty new in your new role, But what do you think, which 3 words would your team use to describe you?
Caring, creative, different.
Ooh, nice.
That's a good combination.
Yeah. I also saw on Instagram, I just did a little research, that you're also loving doing coffee. And we also are hobby baristas. So we have also like the nice coffee machine at home. And it's your morning routine. But yeah, just tell us how you drink your coffee.
Oh, I drink it an espresso or a double espresso. I once got told at a date that the way you drink coffee tells a lot about yourself. And I got asked, so how do you drink your coffee? Exactly what you shared. And I said, well, I normally drink a double espresso. And she told me, that means you're very intense. I was like, okay, this date is going great.
Great. That's amazing.
How do you drink your coffee?
I'm drinking flat white, to be honest. I'm not drinking only espresso, just with oat milk. Yeah.
No.
Like a flat white, because the double is better with the cream.
And I also drink most of the time a flat white with oat milk. And the last question from the personal question we want to know from you, which is your favorite board game?
I hope you have some easy questions going forward, because otherwise, favorite board game. So I would say if I want to spend a longer time playing a board game, it would be Terraforming Mars. It takes 2.5 to 3 hours to play, so you need to have the time for it. If it's something quick, we are now playing a lot collaborative game called Sky Team, where you are a pilot and a co-pilot, and you have to land an airplane with dice and the airport's difficulty, and you have to do different things. We play it every morning. So before very early at 7:30, my wife and I play it every morning. And this morning we landed in Atlanta with somebody doing an internship aboard. Yeah, so
that's fun.
But it's an app, or is it a real board game?
It's a real board game. So there's one thing that we haven't gone digital is by playing, and we do have quite a bit of board games, I have to say, but we don't digitalize any of the playing because we like the physical rolling the dice.
Yeah, that's a good.
Crazy.
That's a good game.
What's your favorite board game?
I'd say I'm just like, if it counts as a board game, I'd say Activity, because it just always works, and it's just a good mix of everything. And another one that's not really a board game, but a game that I love to play is Kniffel or Yahtzee. I don't know if it's even like an international game or not. But I think that's just something that always works pretty good. It's not that complicated, and it's just always a fun game.
Nice.
Yeah. And Paul, yours? Which one is yours?
I need to cheat. I think it's a card game. But it's Monopoly Deal.
Yeah, but this is still a board game. I would include card games as board games.
I really like it because you can, in a short time, you can get a lot of money. And the game is very fast, and it's not like that long like Monopoly, so I really like it. And when I was in Australia, we played it like every day. You can play it with 2 people, so it's nice.
That's a good game.
To have a card game.
I like that one as well. But definitely like the airport game. I'm going to write that down and remember that, because I think that's definitely a good game. So thank you for sharing.
Of course. And you get to play with each other and not against each other. So
That's also a good thing. But now we obviously want to talk about your job and your career a little bit more. You got the chance to experience both sides of development, starting in the Siemens recruitment program and now being head of PDPs. So maybe can you give us a little bit more context what the PDPs actually are and what that stands for? Because I think we have some listeners who don't know every acronym at Siemens. So can you give us a little bit more context what it is, and also maybe what inspires you most about it?
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to tell you about the PDPs. And for sure, I think we have enough acronyms at Siemens where I would also need some explanations in the calls that I participate. So PDPs stand for Potential Development Programs. And those are programs where we develop internal talent. So we don't recruit them from the external market. We look internally and we develop them accordingly. So we have 43 certified PDPs, or Potential Development Programs, and basically they are organized depending on the business, on the function, as well as in regions. We do centrally host 3 programs, used to be 4. And our mission is to create and develop talent within the organization to bring individuals from where they are to where they can be. And I'm extremely passionate about the topic of personal development and bringing extracting the potential of individuals. And I love the team. I love the opportunity of being able to craft and influence and impact people's journeys, as well as consequently impacting the leaders that we have in the organization.
No, it's really amazing. And I mean, we also kind of looked at the SharePoint and looked at all of the different PDPs there are. And it's just amazing to see how many different PDPs you have. So like the different like focuses, and as you already said, like all of the different functions that are included. So there's basically, I'd say, for everyone at Siemens, like maybe the perfect PDP. So that's really cool. What do you think, or do you have like kind of a recommendation for somebody who's now like, oh, I'd like to consider a PDP? Are there maybe some characteristics that somebody needs, or is there something that you would recommend, okay, if you want to do it, that's something that you can just do?
I would take it a step before that. I would start with the why. Why do you want to develop, and towards what? I often think that we spend not enough time self-reflecting, and we are very, very influenced by other people, what they're doing, by career progression having to be vertical and having to go through development programs where maybe you might not need a development program because you can get to where you want to be without a development program, right? So I think my first recommendation would be to spend some time with yourself to think, okay, what is it that I want to achieve and how do I get there? And once you've done that phase, of course, look at the PDPs. What do they have to offer? And if something can bring you to where you are and from where you are to where you want to be. That would be my first recommendation. In terms of what somebody would need for a PDP, I think everybody should be qualified for a PDP. I think if you have that career drive and there is a vehicle, an existing vehicle with one of the programs to get you there, I think that's a first step, right? So yeah, that ambition to grow yourself, to develop yourself, and PDPs are only one vehicle. There's many vehicles in terms of self-learning. There's so much content into my learning world, but also outside of the Siemens, right? I do a lot of learning through books. I do a lot of learning through podcasts. So it's really identifying which areas do you want to develop for yourself and start from there.
Yeah, that's a good tip. And I also saw on the SharePoint that you can maybe, if you're not sure yourself, you can talk to your executive maybe in like the growth talk or something. And then they can also reach out to your team to just get more information about the PDPs, because I think 43 PDPs is definitely a lot. So we've also kind of only got a very short view into what PDPs actually exist. But yeah, that's a very good tip.
I would even go a step further, which is speak to somebody that has done the PDP. They will give you an insider's perspective as to, okay, where were they before the PDP? Where are they now? How did the PDP serve what they wanted to achieve? And what would they do differently? And I think I've done this in the past as well, where I've run to my manager and say, I want to do this, without really doing the due diligence as to, okay, somebody that has done it, what do they think?
What's their experience?
Would they recommend it? And if not, what would they recommend instead? So I would do what I called due diligence in terms of development. Is this something for you, yes or not?
Okay. Yeah. And maybe like from your perspective, do you have one person who did a PDP that kind of stood out for you, that kind of is still in your head? Or if you don't have like somebody who inspired you, like in the PDP field, maybe outside of Siemens, where you're like, okay, that inspires you every day?
So from the PDP side of things, I would say the 5,000 alumni are inspiring to me, because it takes a certain level of boldness to decide, look, I'm going to enroll in a program. I don't know what's at the end of it, but I'm willing to bet on myself. And I think that for me is inspiring. And we have 5,000 alumni that have gone through PDP. So I would say that would be my inspiring point of view. From outside of Siemens, I find somebody very inspiring, whose name is Stephen Bartlett. Have you heard of him?
No.
So he is, like you both, he's a host of a podcast. The podcast name is The Diary of a CEO.
Okay.
And in this podcast, he interviews different personalities, right? So from experts in well-being or health to recently he had somebody which was expert in political topics, given what is going on now in the world. Very large topics. And he started his career as somebody in a call center. And he has turned, he took a bet on himself. I also recently heard a quote, not from him, but from somebody else. The less money I have, the more creative I get. So he didn't have any money, but he started recording in a room, and he built up I think he mentioned recently 70 million downloads every month.
Wow.
He's also an investor, and he also funded different companies, right? So I think somebody that followed their passion, that did not see obstacles, but only opportunities to get around them, it's something that I find very inspiring, right? So whatever that passion may be, follow it.
That's
nice.
definitely very inspiring.
We need to listen to it.
Yes. So later on, we have our media tip.
Yeah.
I think we already got a good recommendation
Yeah.
from you here.
I can be more specific with immediately.
Great.
Nice. Looking back, if you had to pick one PDP for yourself today, which one would it be?
So it would be very difficult to pick one. So I will pick 3,
Okay.
if it's okay with you.
Of course.
It's okay.
So number 1, I would pick Speak. Speak is a PDP that is based on communication. I am a big fan of communication and storytelling, and I would be curious to see how I could develop my communication skills through the Speak program. The second one is something regional. I spent some time in the regions. You also mentioned of my international different stages across the globe, and there's a program called SOAR, which is in ASEAN, so Singapore, Indonesia, which I would also be very curious because I lived there, but it was during COVID time, so I couldn't travel.
Okay.
And all the cultural context around the area, I think it's fascinating. So I would do that one for a regional perspective. And I would do from a business perspective, I spent time in DI, I spent time in SI, but I've never spent time in mobility.
Okay.
And so I would pick Drive because Drive supports project management in mobility. And I just find it fascinating. From nothing, we are pulling out projects that have locomotives and trains on the streets, or on the rails. So I would pick those 3 for those reasons. Unfortunately, I cannot single it down to one.
Okay, that's fine. But maybe probably you, if you choose a PDP, which one would it be?
It's hard because yesterday I had a look at all the 43 PDPs, and what stands out for me was the STAND program.
Okay.
Because I thought of, now I can't do it because I read it's like 3 years to 5 years experience after your highest graduation. So now I'm in my master, so I need to work more to do it. But I really like it because it's a network in Germany, and you can just experience a different function for 15 months. Yeah, it was 15 months. And I really like to go to another city, so it would be nice.
Which city would you go to?
Maybe Berlin or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I'm going to Berlin, it's nice to be in the STAND program when you work there and have a different business. Yeah, I really would do this. And you, Lawrence?
I also looked, and I thought the Speak one was very attractive because obviously we work in the communication business, so that would be, I think, like from like the topics, a very good fit. But I also heard a lot of good things about the FA Potentials Network. FA is Factory Automation. That's also the business unit that Pauli and I are working in. So I think that would also be a very good mix. And it would just be an amazing opportunity to support FA and just help getting FA a little bit bigger and a little bit better. So I'd say, the FA Potentials Network.
Awesome.
You're also working as a career coach and have amazing tips how you can improve. What is the best advice you've ever given and that you'd give maybe also talents who are interested in PDPs to just follow?
Career advice.
Yes.
I've learned this, unfortunately, through experience, and I wish somebody would have slapped me in the face. I would say spend time with yourself, and I learned 3 different currencies that I try to bring everything back to. The first currency is time. You're going to be investing a lot of time in your career, so make sure that the time that you're spending, it's valuable. And the second one would be fulfillment. So whatever you decide to do, you need to be fulfilled. And the third one would be energy. Not every day, so energy is something that you get, but you won't get every day. But most of the days, you should be energized by the things that you're doing. And I think I left my studies pursuing carrots, right? So here's a carrot, you're going to a foreign country, here's another carrot, a little bit more responsibility, here's a third carrot, a little bit more salary. And in the end, not necessarily those things would give you time, energy, or fulfillment, right? So after the stroke in December of 2023, I really anchored to those 3 currencies. And I would say that, along with you can make your passion your career, would be the biggest advice. It's abstract. It's maybe a little bit spiritual in a way, if you want to call it. Nevertheless, it has proven to me that anchoring to those 3 values plus passion could serve as a good career advice.
But I think it's very difficult to just focus so much on yourself and actually ask yourself these questions. Do you have some tips to maybe make that a little bit easier? Or are you just like, okay, just, I don't know, write it down in any way and just, I don't know, get like an overview of what you're actually thinking? Because like, I'm in my mind was like, okay, everything that you just said, how can I soil it and how can I don't know, maybe do that myself?
So I think that's where an external perspective, like either a career coach or somebody could be asking you the right questions, or simply maybe not even right questions, but just ask questions. I think we don't, or I in the past didn't ask myself enough questions. And if you don't ask yourself questions, you never seek for answers.
That's true.
The second thing is we don't make time for it. I think we run from meeting to our next activity to grabbing gelato to going to Berlin. And I'm not sure if it's because we're uncomfortable to spend time with ourselves. I'm an only child, so I had a lot of time to spend time with myself. Right? And I was traveling the world for the most part on my own. I think it's becoming comfortable with, hey, I need some time for myself. What are the decisions that I need to take? What are the questions that are relevant for those decisions? And if you don't feel like you can do it on your own, ask help.
That's a good advice that we could definitely take and use. So thank you very much. And before you started working for PDPs, you've also been in the learning and growth department, and especially because Pauli and I are working for the learning organization. Maybe how would you say does that experience from learning and growth helps you in your new position now that you've just, I think, 3 months ago started? So what do you think that background really influenced your way of working?
So I think one of my biggest learnings from the learning and growth, well, first of all, it's impressive. Of course, I'm a little bit biased, but it's impressive the things we do at Siemens compared to, the greater ecosystem. And I was privileged to be a part of it, and I learned a lot. For me, one of the biggest learnings that I took of that experience is the importance of staying close to the business and the regions. I think the realities from the business and the regional countries is very different to what we see in corporate. And being able to understand those realities first puts you in a position to support those realities much more. Second of all, there is a lot of learning that you can bring back by spending more time with the businesses, more time with the regions. So that would have been, I would say, my biggest learning out of that experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because I think, like, especially like in the different regions, there are so different people. So it's really important to learn what their needs actually are, and not just give them like an overall thing that is supposed to work because it works on LinkedIn or something. It's really important to get to know the deeper meaning of what the people actually need to learn.
That's true.
And also that there's so many challenges that we do not face, but maybe learning is not at the forefront at the very beginning, or on there every day. So also understanding that priorities change, I think, is also something that I realized by being in close contact.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your insights about that. And that brings us perfectly to the heart of our podcast, because Love to Learn is all about exactly that. Learning in real life and not just on paper. So let me start with our favorite question on the podcast. It's, when was the last time you learned something completely new?
Completely new?
Yeah, is it any sport or
something?
I don't know.
Work environment, for example. I recently had to learn a little bit more how to analyze statistics for my master's thesis. So I definitely had to completely learn new things about how data works and how everything is getting together. So maybe do you have something there?
I'm still working on it. I'm learning how to walk on my hands. So doing a handstand walk. Not very recently, but I did CrossFit for a while. I even got a CrossFit certification to be able to coach others. I haven't used that, but I got it.
Great.
And learning to walk on my hands got me very uncomfortable, because you see the world upside down. You work with an extremity that you're normally not used to. And you would say, wow, I'm sure it's easier said than done. No. It is easier said than done, because I haven't been able to do more than 2 meters.
I wanted to ask, what's your goal? Like, how long do you want to walk?
So in competitive CrossFit, I do not know how long do they have to walk for, but ideally I would like to do 20 to 50 meters. So I've barely crossed the 2 meter.
That's quite a challenge.
Yeah, so I'll keep you posted.
Because I recently just tried a handstand, and I was terrible. Like, as a child, it was pretty easy to just do a handstand, and somehow it just worked. But now, as an adult, it's so much more difficult.
You overthink everything.
Yes, you overthink everything, and it's just way more complicated. So maybe the next step is then to walk on your hands.
There's a lot of technique I learned. So just the way you position your hands. Of course, development of strength, where is your weight, and so on. Something that you said brings me to the topic of learning, which is learning how to do a handstand as a kid was easy. And we can extrapolate, or I normally extrapolate that to learning in general. Learning anything as a kid was easier. And I often reflect, why is that? And I have a feeling that we stopped being curious. I can only speak for myself, right? But I figured out that I stopped being curious, and I stopped willing to fail. As a kid, you do a handstand, you fall, and you try it again. As an adult, I try something, I failed, and I start to wonder, should I try again? And I wonder what would happen if we were a little bit more like kids and a little bit more playful. And we would give ourselves a little bit more grace about failing.
I mean, always seeing a child, they don't think about anything, they don't worry about anything, and they're just doing it. And they don't care what anyone thinks, they are just free in their spirit. And I think sometimes it's always said, like, find your inner child or something. But I think that's really, like, important to just think a little bit more like a kid, and maybe before overthinking something, think to yourself, what would I do when I was still a child? So
I like that.
While we talk about learning, what does lifelong learning mean to you?
Oh, I think lifelong learning I would attribute to the 1%. I think it's that everyday curiosity to be willing to explore. And it can be from doing a handstand to learning a statistics, not having the not having the restriction of, this is not for me. But I think about it when I was a kid and I bring it to food. Yeah, when I was a kid, my mom would not allow me to say that I don't like it if I had not tried it. I think that a little bit about lifelong learning. Yeah, you can say that you don't like it only as long as you have tried it. So being curious about whichever topic, artificial intelligence, factory automation, industrial co-pilot, you name it. Yeah. But if you don't try it, how do you know that you don't like it?
Yeah,
That's true.
That's true. And the worst thing that can happen is that you fail, and then you've learned something from failing, and you can grow.
Yeah. So for me, lifelong learning is finding those trying things. I'm not going to like everything, but once there is something, go down that rabbit hole.
Nice.
No, so you'd say that definition is the same one as the to grow 1% more every day, or do you have like another definition for
I would
that?
I would say being curious on a daily basis and liberating yourself from exploring. Yeah, feel not entitled. I think that's not a good word, but feeling curious to explore new areas.
Yeah, okay. That's nice.
Nice. You also brought your notebook, and I can see a nice drawing. What's your personal learning strategy that helps you improve consistently over the time? Maybe.
Thank you for the question. And I don't know if it's a great drawing. It's just me being
It's
me.
an amazing drawing. So we've seen it here, and it's like the colors you used, it's amazing.
So maybe for those that cannot see it, and I don't know if we can share a picture, but there's a central image in the center with a heart and a learning hat. So kind of like when you graduate and you throw it up in the air, very American. But for the title of the podcast, love to learn, and then different branches with different colors and some drawings. So my learning strategy, going back to your question, Pauline, I recently wrote a post in LinkedIn because I realized something for myself, that I had done a lot of learning and personal development. I'm a sucker for you name it, whether it's books, podcasts, webinars, newsletters. And I realized that I was doing a lot of binging, but not a lot of learning.
Okay.
And my learning strategy has become that for every piece of content, I assign a minimum small task or action for me to complete and implement. So, and learning happens by doing. And I was learning, but I was not doing. So I was consuming content. It could have been, I don't know, whatever series, Stranger Things, for all I know.
Yes.
But I wasn't bringing me any further or developing myself anywhere, right? So I think my learning strategy has become to concretely decide for myself what is a very small action that may not even feel like a task that I can implement to be 1% better. How do I do that? So I mean, I recently listened to a podcast, or for the preparation for this one, I visualized using mind maps. And this is something that was my action at the time, to not only read and inform myself, but implement them. Of course, it was not easy at the beginning, because you have to become a bit more of a child. You have to use colors. You have to get creative. You have to be kind to yourself that you don't draw very well at the beginning, neither now, but nevertheless, just a little bit better. And that is also a muscle that you develop, right? So for me, that strategy of learning, consolidating into one single action, no more, not a list, not 1,000, just one action.
Nice. And you collected everything in your book, or do you have like at home like a atelier or something?
So I have different books for different things. I have collected quite a few. I think I think I've done more than 300-400 mind maps at this point.
Okay.
And you see, I'm very happy to share with you after this the progression between stick figures and then different colors. At the beginning, there was a lot of color everywhere. Now I color coded. Okay. So I think it's part of learning in the sense of you develop your own craft. And you need to make learning serve your purpose rather than you serving the purpose of learning, right? So experimentation, back to the inner child, right? Explore, fail. don't judge yourself. I think we judge ourselves so hard that we are the first limitations to ourselves, where we say, oh, this is not good enough, it's not for me, let's move on. So that would be my answer to your learning strategy, Pauline.
Nice. You also mentioned in the beginning that your colleagues would describe you as creative. So I'm going to ask myself, what does creativity means to you?
Daring to think beyond the usual, I would say. And sometimes I'm too creative. And that is also, I think, if we talk about, for example, strength scope, something that we use internally at Siemens, you can use your strength in overdrive, and that doesn't lead anywhere, right? Okay. So I think sometimes being surrounded by people that can ground that creativity and make something feasible, I think that's where the sweet spot is. And I think also in terms of creativity, for me, creativity is, what if we were to do it differently? What would that look like? And between how we do it and how we could do it differently, there lies a middle point where potentially something different may happen.
No.
Nice.
No.
We also have in our learning organization a creativity lab. So everyone can do the creativity masterclass, and I'm right now doing it. And it's also nice because you train and you get some methods how you can implement it in your daily life.
What has been your biggest aha moment?
My biggest aha moment, to be honest, was that also creativity is not like drawing or creating a picture or just crafting something. It's more than that. It's just like exploding with ideas and create something crazy. And the more ideas, the craziest and the nicest it gets. So yeah, I think everyone needs to be creative.
I would recommend you to take a look at a video. I think I think it was done in the 80s by IDEO. IDEO recorded a video on how they would design a shopping cart. And I think it's very cool to see how the ideation process and how different a shopping cart could look if, like you said, you threw ideas at a board, you put them together, and maybe it's not the idea, but it for sure is a creative process that may land you with a very different concept as to what you have in mind.
That's good.
It's also nice in daily work that I'm doing something for myself and learning creativity. It's just a nice thing doing it here.
Have you also done it?
No,
once?
I haven't done it yet, but I definitely plan to do it.
And that's with Toby, right?
Yes.
Okay.
His colleagues are doing the masterclass. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Toby Eismann, for everybody who doesn't know him, he's really like the creativity master. So everyone who wants to get more into the creativity space, he's definitely the perfect person to contact and the perfect person to get to know.
That's true.
You already mentioned your stroke that happened to you 2 years ago, only at the age of 35. Very sorry to hear that happened to you. And I hope that you're comfortable to talk about it.
For sure.
What was maybe like your biggest learning from such a, I mean, I think in the first moment it's probably a devastating thing to happen. What was your biggest learning from that?
I find and consider myself very fortunate. I think I wish everybody didn't have to go through it by any means. Like I would save everybody from going through it. Nevertheless, I took a lot of learning out of it. Of course, it was unexpected, right? But I spent so much time thinking of the future. I spend so much time thinking, I have to save money for when I go into retirement. I thought of how will I propose to my girlfriend at the time to make it the perfect moment. I thought about what is going to be my next career move. I spend so much time in the future and not enough time in the present. And one of the biggest learnings from that is the future might never come. Yet I spent 80% of my time in the future thinking about it, right? For me, it was such a slap on the face to say, hey, right here, right now, live in the present. And what I found disappointing is that I had read so many self-development books. I had heard so many podcasts. I had been in workshops of self-development that tell you exactly that. And I had to go through a life-changing event to learn it. And not only learning, but take that one action to really be right here, right now.
Yeah.
The other thing that I learned is, in the end, in the corporate world, Siemens continued to work while I had a stroke. There was no question in my mind. Yet the impact that you can have in your family if you don't prioritize yourself, if you don't take care of your health, of what you eat, of how you spend your time, you're not replaceable easily in a family context, right? So that also triggered me. And the last learning that I would share, because I don't want to bore anybody, is you have, I mentioned the now, right? And I think we have, or I have this perspective of you enjoy life once you're done with working, because you work towards that. And I saw that in my parents, and it's a value that it was instilled in me. And I'm extremely thankful to my wife and to the stroke, in a way, who opened my eyes. And, from the stroke, we decided that we were going to take 6 months off to travel. We traveled for 6 months around the world. And I don't think, had I not had the stroke, it would have been a much, much, much tougher decision. So those would be 3 learnings. Live in the now, enjoy while you can and as much as you can, because the future might never come.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's such a hard thing to happen, and like that you reflected so much what happened and just enjoying the moment more. I think that's really amazing, and it's really impressive, and very nice to hear how you really like took such a like bad thing and turned it somehow into something good. Or you're now even saying, okay, thanks to the stroke, you got the opportunity to do something that you would have never done because you were in such a like viewpoint of like, okay, now working. It's like the most important thing. So it's crazy how when something like that happens, it brings things back into perspective.
Totally. I think perspective is absolutely the word.
What do you do just to recharge from work?
So one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that I feel recharged by work nowadays, right?
Okay.
That's why I find it very important to think about, okay, how, not every day, of course, some days are tougher than others, but on an average, I feel very recharged by work, but also by the team.
Yeah.
That's important. I find rechargement also in sports. Recently, I listened to a podcast that if they were to put what sports that's for your body into a pill, it will be the biggest pharma blockbuster. Unfortunately, you have to go through the suffering of doing the sports. But it does do me a lot of good to expose myself, to do sports, to get uncomfortable. And the other thing that recharges me is finding time to recharge. So being self-aware of, look, I've had my social batteries drained, so I need time with a smaller crowd. I've done a quite heavy workload in terms of work, so it's time for pause. I haven't been doing sports or outdoors for quite a while. So being aware of me needing to recharge gives me the opportunity to recharge. And then I allocate to whether it's self-development, sports, and activities that playing board games.
Yeah, that's a good tip. And especially when you start in the morning with a board game, you have the perfect preparation for the entire day.
I switch on, now I can land any plane.
Yes.
I also really like the analog life you're living. So the board game's not digital and going outdoors and not being on the phone, and it's a really nice hint for myself that I'm maybe not going so much on my social medias and just put the phone away and go outside.
But that's also something I learned last year, that I started going running a little bit more, and just for 1 hour not look at the phone, not like look at any notifications. I always turn on like a sport mode so I don't I get distracted and just focus more on the moment and not being so much on the digital space.
And there are many, many ways that one can do that. So, for example, you can set automations in your phone so that it goes into airplane mode, for example. So one of the things that I realized not too long ago is that even if the phone vibrated, I would react to it. So what would happen if I don't let it vibrate? And now at home, when it gets to 7 p.m., especially my work phone, goes into airplane mode to avoid my thoughts being somewhere else that is not right then, right there. Another thing that I've implemented also recently is, I'm not always successful, I have to admit, but the first hour of the day, especially until we're done with landing planes or playing a board game, is not looking at the phone. First reaction when I used to wake up is looking at the phone.
I'm guilty with that as well.
And that also started by not having my alarm on the phone, because then you have it in your hand. So if I learned through a book called Atomic Habits that if you want to break a bad habit, make it difficult. So if I didn't have my phone at an arm's reach, it would be more difficult for me to be on my phone. So
that's true.
That is what I can share with you both.
That's a good tip. And talking about tips, we, looking at the time, need to go to our last two categories of the podcast because we're already at the end, unfortunately. But we always share a media tip of the week. So it can be a book, a documentation, a podcast, whatever inspires you. So you have a little bit time to maybe decide which media tip you want to share. I'm first going to ask Pauli, what is your media tip of the week?
You can also share like 2 or 3 or many if you need to after all your mind maps. For me, I would recommend a podcast. It's from Stefanie Giesinger. Maybe you know her. She was a top model who won the Germany's Next Top Model, but she's also, with all her topics, very nice and reachable for my generation. And she has a podcast called G-Spot. And yesterday I heard an episode about women's health. And it's nice because she's talking about topics no one is talking about. And it's cool that she's open to it. And all the guests she's inviting, it's nice just to hear. And it's also 1 hour and I love it.
Yes.
And what's your tip of the week?
My media tip of the week is also something non-digital. It's a book because I've read that book a few weeks ago. It's called The Midnight Library.
Oh, very good book by Matthew Haig.
Yes, it's a very good book. It's basically about somebody who dies and then enters a world between life and death, which is called the Midnight Library. And every book in that library is kind of an alternative life. For example, like if that person would have chosen another career or would have married another partner or something. And it really brings things back into perspective. And I think it's a very deep book. So if you want to read it, be emotionally prepared for it. But I think it's just, a nice book with like a very good and deeper meaning. So I really enjoyed that one.
I think that's a very good book. I like that.
Yes.
And now we are talking about your tips or tip. It's your choice.
So I will share with you 2 recommendations. The first one is a podcast that I recently heard. I do suck at small talk. Yet, small talk is one of the biggest unlocks to network. And network is one of the biggest unlocks for potential opportunities, whether they're professional, personal, in any context, right? I recently heard a podcast by The Diary of a CEO. That's the name of the podcast. And the podcast guest was Alison Wood Brooks, where she especially speaks about small talk, asking questions, preparing for conversations. This was actually a recommendation passed on to me, and I now pass it on to you and your audience. It's 2.5 hours, so it's quite a long one. Nevertheless, it's for me, it was highly educational. The action that I took is to ask more questions and to listen more and to create that human connection. She's a Harvard professor, so she does know what she's talking about, and it was quite revealing. Although nothing nuclear science, but quite revealing. The second tip is a book. So I go from digital to analog. It's a book that is called How to Win Friends and Influence People. The title is awful. The book is awful. So I'm doing a great job at setting this recommendation. Nevertheless, it's a book that one can read in 20 minutes because all you have to do is go to the end of of the chapter, and there's a one-liner, and that's it. Yeah, I think in German it's called "Wie man Freunde gewinnt," and to be honest, it's how to be human. Yeah, how to, call people by their names.
Yes.
Smile more. Do not criticize. Put in the other person's perspective. And I share with you an anecdote which, to me, to this day, still gives me the shivers when I tell it, because doing something so small would have such an impact on somebody. I read this book for the first time in 2018. And at the time I was living in Barcelona, and I went to do my groceries. And, I had read the chapter on the biggest compliment you can pay to anybody is calling them by their name. So I was in the cashier, I was putting my things in my bags, and the cashier's name was Laura. Nothing that I had to ask for, it was written on her on her tag. So I grabbed my things and I told her, Laura, thank you very much. I hope you have a great day. And as I was leaving, she told me, hey, stop. In my mind, I was like, I left my card there. My keys are probably also there. Me being me, what did I forget? How embarrassing. And she told me, you are the first person that has made me feel like a person and not like a cashier. And all it took me was calling her by her name. And since then, everywhere I go, it doesn't matter whether it's the post station, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's the bank, I always use that individual's name or ask for their name. I give you one caveat though. Unfortunately, nowadays, due to Google reviews, for example, the first reaction is very conservative. Like, why do you need my name? Nevertheless, it changes that interaction so much more for myself, but also for that individual, that I highly recommend you both to give it a try and let me know how it feels. You will be uncomfortable at first, though.
But that's a good tip. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
That's so cool. I need to do that. I'm also excited to check the podcast and listen to it. Maybe while I'm cleaning my apartment or something. But the time is running, and that's why we are coming to our last category. It calls quick and fire round. So no overthinking, just whatever comes first. And I will hand over to Lawrence for the first question.
Yes, vacation on the beach or in the mountains?
On the beach.
Nice. The second one is reading a book or working out.
Oh, wow. What a tough one. Working out.
And if you'd have to describe yourself as a kitchen tool, which one would it be?
Thermomix.
I already said when you're going to answer, it's going to be the Thermomix.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
Why did you think that?
Because the Thermomix is doing everything, and you can create nice things, and I think, and I thought of you,
really?
It's gonna be the Thermomix.
Yeah, and it's also like such a creative tool, because you can do so much with it. Because sometimes in other tools you can just bake with them, you can just mix things, but with the Thermomix you can do everything in most creative ways.
So I learned a German word, and so it's called Tausendsassa. And the reason why I picked the Thermomix is because I do believe that I can do many things. I cannot do anything excellent. So I can do everything okay, just like the Thermomix. But if you were a baker, you would never bake in a Thermomix. If you were, a professional cook, you would pick probably pans and pots, right? And that's where I set the Thermomix, because I do think I can do a lot of things, but not a lot excellently.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay, that's a good answer. So thank you very much, Toni, for being a part of Love to Learn.
Ich danke euch.
Gerne. It was a lot of fun talking to you and getting to know you a lot better. So thank you very much for sharing everything about your life. And I hope you had a lot of fun.
It was an absolute blast. Thank you so much for the invite.
You're welcome. And also, Pauli, thank you for your first English episode. You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
You did it amazingly. Thank you very much to all of the listeners. You can rank the podcast if you want to on Spotify, and you can also share it with everyone. And if you've liked the media tips, we also put them into the show notes, so you can find them easily. So thank you very much for everybody.
Thank you both for the work that you do, for inspiring people to learn, and for sure for having me in the episode. It was an absolute blast. So with or without a microphone, we should do this again.
definitely.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Tschüss. Tschüss.